everyone, all the multifamily investors. You're really, excited for the call. And myself, Kiran, I am with really special guest, Mark Frenz, and who has been investing in real estate since he was 19 years old. So that's very young. And he has a master's degree in psychology, and he has owned and run multiple businesses. He recently purchased a 55-unit building in central Alberta with a 6 million purchase price. So that's a really huge win. What Mark does as special is he helps investors in the task or the things that uh, investors struggle with. So he has special talents and the experience. He has been investing into real estate. So that's a huge win. Welcome, Mark. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast.
Yeah, it's good hanging out here with you a little bit, Kiran.
Thank you. So tell our audience a little bit. We met a few years ago, and I'm really, inspired by your. I listened to you 3 years ago. It was you talk about mindset and how it affects all of us as we invest into real estate, because it's we all know the things to do, but when it takes very few people who actually do the things, right? So yeah.
Yeah, mindset is an interesting thing, Kiran, because I used to think that anybody could have the right mindset to do whatever they wanted. And as I learned more, as I grew more, as I started working with a lot more people, for a long time I worked as an executive coach. And I found that some people, no matter what happens, they're simply not going to take the action that they need to take to achieve certain goals. So it's one thing to say, hey, I want to lose some weight, or I want to have a better relationship, or those are things that anyone can do. But it takes a certain personality to build a significant business. So not everyone, and this is what I compare it to. A lot of people will say, oh, if I did it, anybody can do it. And that's trash. Legitimately, there are some things that some people are just going to be better at, like basketball or sprinting or calculus or whatever it is. Some people have a mind or a body that can do certain things better than others. So there's a natural skill set, and then there's what we need to improve and grow in. So for me, yes, we need to know the natural ability, what our natural ability, what our natural strengths are. But once we know those strengths, then we need to hone them. We need to get really, really, really good at them. So for example, you said I bought my first property when I was 19 years old. That's true. I did buy my first rental property when I was 19 years old. Back then, it was a lot easier than it is now. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue what I was doing. I got lucky in many ways. Now, real estate is good because even if you make some mistakes, you generally end up being okay as long as you can ride it out for 10, 15, 20 years, right? Yes. Even through really horrible market cycles, you can do really well in real estate. Having said that, even though I did certain things and I knew I was good at certain things, like people, I'm really good with people, I'm really good with connecting with people, I didn't really hone that ability. I didn't really work on my mindset to get as good as I could be at certain things until probably I was in my 30s. And that's when I started understanding, hey, if I really hone my skills, I'm already good at certain things, but if I really hone these things and work on my ability and practice, just like, I don't know, shooting baskets in the gym or practicing, again, in real estate, practice making calls with people, whatever it is, as we practice those things, we get so much better, and it helps our mindset. So and again, really quick example, confidence. Confidence makes a massive difference no matter what we're doing, no matter who we're with. Think of a time for when we didn't have a lot of confidence and how we just didn't get a lot done and it didn't get done well. And think of another time, maybe even the next day when we did have more confidence and things just tended to go our way. Confidence plays a big role, and we can grow confidence, but it's not a quick and easy fix. It takes work, and we live in a culture where everything is expected to come quick and easy, and that's not the way the good life happens. The good life happens through taking time and energy and making it happen by doing the right things in the right way over a long period of time.
Right, and a lot of as a people, like when people get results, quick results, it gives motivation to do the next step. But the thing is, when you don't get the results, how determined are you to continue? Like a lot of investors, like looking for properties, and not making sense. How determined are you? and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, that's a really, really key point, Kiran, because quick results, everyone wants the quick results. Everyone wants the lottery ticket, right? But the people who aren't getting quick results, but are putting in the time and the energy, end up getting better results in the end because now they don't have any ability to give up. They've worked that ability to give up out of them. So they do what they need to do in the trenches, working hard, doing what they need to do every day. There's a great book that was called The Score Takes Care of Itself. And basically it was somebody who was saying, never look at the results. Never look at the results. Don't focus on the results. Focus on what you need to do. And if you do what you need to do on a consistent basis, you'll get the results. You don't have to worry about the results. Just do what you need to do.
Nice. And then recently, last year, we visited in Regina, your recent project in a really really great building, concrete building. Really impressed by how clean and the location. And I used to live right across from your building, Mark. So I was a student visa, and then I showed you the red brick building. It's life. I have never imagined that I will know somebody who will own, like really big buildings. So it's just a blessing to know you. And so talk about your project, like how, so you bought it for, you got it under contract for 23 million, and you're doing massive value increase, because in multifamily, it's all about the NOI, right? Yes.
Yeah, you need that net operating income up. It's again, it's finance like a business. You and I know this, and not a lot of people know this still. So as long as we increase the net operating income, we're increasing the value of the property. It's now worth. This is a year after. It's now worth close to 30 million. And
Wow.
now we have put some money into it, but it's amazing what you can do when you have a little bit of time and a little bit of energy and you can really focus on a project. That's something that I love about larger projects is the scalability. You can scale everything. So as an example, we put in Wi-Fi internet for everybody, and we started charging them instead of them getting it from SaskTel or whatever the provider is, they get it from us. We end up charging them far less than SaskTel would charge them. So it's a good deal for them. And it actually has increased the building an extra $400,000. It's just
Wow.
really, really unique, small things you can do that make a big difference for a property. And that's what I love about big projects as well.
That's really great. And even a small thing, and you have, and the other thing I like about the building, there's like already a gym, and already there's a sauna, and there's like big commercial storage, like a lot of value add opportunities. And it's so hard to find these opportunities, right? So it's so hard to find opportunities and negotiating with the seller, because it's a different, what's on the market. And it's either, if it's really good, it's either it gets sold, and or it's already to its highest potential, and then there's like buy and hold. So what kind of multifamily projects you look for, and how do you find those projects? What's your criteria? Like, like there are like 10 different properties. What you are going to say yes, or what you're going to take on?
Yeah, I look at things a little bit differently than I think maybe the average person does.
Hmm.
When I look at a project, I have two goals in mind. One is if I buy this project, because I always work with investors, if I buy this project, can I get at the very minimum, can I get 5% cash on cash returns for my partners, for my capital partners, my investors? So that's the first kind of criteria. The second criterion is that I want a total of at least 20% annualized returns for my investors. So when I look at a project, I go, what can I do with this? Even if it's not giving me that much value at the start, can I quickly get it to this point where I can give really good returns for investors? Now, typically I give better than that. It's like 25, 30%. But those are my basic criteria, because to me, it's all about taking care of your partners. It's all about taking care of those things. So I don't care, and this is coming back to your question, I don't care if it's new, I don't care if it's old. I don't care if it's really big or a little bit smaller. I don't care if it's only multifamily or whether it has some commercial in it. To me, those are not the most important criteria. It's always for me, what can I give to my investors long term? And if it meets those criteria, I'm happy.
Okay, nice. That's great. And how about the economic conditions? Like you have picked Regina, and for the project, and over the last few decades, what have you seen in the market, and what the economic conditions, and picking up, going from one market to another market to?
Yeah, you're asking such a huge question. I could probably talk about this for hours on end, just because there's so many factors, right? So one factor, and this is coming back to your previous question, Kiran. You asked about what I'm looking for in a property. Actually, there are more criteria than just investors. I won't work in a market that has the chance of going dead. So I don't work in small towns at all. There's a lot of money to be made in small towns. I'm not saying it's bad, but for me, I'm always trying to mitigate risk. And for me, a larger city always has less risk in it, same risk, but less unmitigated risk in it than a smaller town where one industry can go and the town disappears. So I told you I've got a property in Red Deer. I love it because it's between Calgary and Edmonton. There are a lot of really strong fundamentals in that market. This one in Regina, it's downtown in a provincial capital, and that helps. So that's just giving context to I think my full answer for you here. There has been a ton of immigration in Canada since 2018. In 2018, Trudeau talked about bringing a ton of immigrants into the country. Fantastic. I think anyone that understands, anyone who's lived in another country, anyone who understands the value of having people from other cultures come to a country, understands that's wonderful. The government didn't think it through very well. So they started bringing people in, which is fantastic, but they didn't realize, oh, this is going to drive up housing prices. This is going to create shortages. This is going to create, just because they didn't think it through. So they're starting to really slow down on immigration. Now, we might have a new government coming in next year. If immigration slows down, that is going to affect the Canadian real estate market, and that's going to affect it greater than almost any other single factor. That's just the way it is. People sometimes get really complex about this stuff, and it doesn't need to be. So one, immigration plays a large role. And you know what? The real estate market's going to slow down if immigration really starts to slow down. Secondly, I always ask myself, what's happening in certain markets? So again, I always look at major cities. I'm not into small towns or small places. I always want to be in a decent sized city, because when a decent sized city has trouble, if you are located in the right place, you can weather the storm far better. I've got some friends that buy, like I've got a friend who's in a town of something like 800 people, and he has the only apartment building in that town. And that's great. Again, I'm not complaining about that. But the way my mind works is, if some of the population leaves that town, there's less demand, just because there's 800 people total. So there's less demand for that property. When I'm in a city like Calgary of 1 point, so Calgary grew by 250,000 people last year. It's only 1.5 million people, and it grew by 250,000 people. When I'm in a city like that, I can handle almost anything that happens as long as my property is in the right location and I'm doing the right things to it, because I just have to decrease rent, attract the right people to it, and often that's when I find the best tenants. So again, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. You can ask me again. But the way I look at this is, yes, economy is affected by immigration. It's affected by the size of the city. There are other things that are going on all the time. So 2008 took a big bite out of a lot of real estate around Canada, and everything that came from that. But really, if you look at the major cities, so GTA, Vancouver, Ottawa, Montreal, Calgary, Edmonton, if you look at the major cities in Canada, they're all doing just fine. None of them were hurt beyond repair. And my guess is that, again, GTA is hurting right now with housing prices, but so many people think that housing prices and apartment buildings are the same. They're not. In the last 35 years, privately owned apartment buildings in Canada have never had one down year. Never one down year. The reason for that is that, again, when economy starts tanking, when awful things start happening, people flock to apartment buildings because it's cheaper to live in an apartment building than to own your own home or to do other things like that. So for me, yes, I think about economy. Yes, I think about what's happening in markets. I've lived through many market cycles, especially Calgary. Calgary's got a crazy market cycle. But legitimately, I don't care. And I'm being really honest with that. If I do what I need to for the building, if I have my financing right, if I lock in rates on that building in Red Deer, you're going to have people drooling over this. On that apartment in Red Deer, I have a 2.7% interest rate locked in for 10 years. And so
Wow.
for me, I'm always looking at those kinds of things. I'm always going, hey, listen, how do I mitigate risk? How do I make sure that no matter what happens, my investors are going to be okay, my tenants are going to be okay because I'm taking care of the building, and then of course, if I take care of those things, then my family's going to be okay.
That's really really big, taking care of the tenants and the investors, because if you, like, you buy a few buildings, if you are not taking care of the tenants and the building, the low vacancy, and then it affects one property gets affected, then investors try taking care of the other building, and it's just like it's one after another. It's like dominoes effect. So how
Yeah.
can so uh, so 5 to 6 units, like you get commercial, like after 6 units, you get commercial financing, and on those properties, you know either is like value add opportunities or buy and hold opportunities. How you transition from those smaller multifamily into bigger multifamilies, and how what was the biggest like learning from those?
That's a really good question, Kieran. So I did things a little bit differently than I think a lot of other people. I started with single family homes, and I was buying single family homes. I was really creative with my strategies. So a lot of people, the way they do it is they buy one single family home, and then they buy a duplex, and they buy a quad, and they buy an eightplex, and they buy a 20, and they just slowly go up. Often people are doing it with their own money. Me, I didn't have any money when so I lived in China for 10 years. I came back to Canada and I had no money. So I was again getting my master's degree. I've got two kids at home. I'm working two part-time jobs, and I was trying to just figure things out. So for me, real estate, I couldn't buy real estate with my own money. So I had to get creative, and I've done every creative strategy that exists. I've done anything you can think of or anything that you've heard of. I've done those deals on single family homes, but I was doing it really small because I was thinking small. And then I met a couple of people, a couple of mentors in my own life. One is a fantastic human being that just taught me everything he knew. And as he taught me everything he knew about apartment buildings, I didn't realize it is easier to buy an apartment building than it was to buy a single family home. And so once I started learning this stuff, what I did was I actually skipped the middle period. So I didn't buy any fourplexes or eightplexes or anything like that. I went from single family homes to a 55 unit building to a 100 unit building. And the reason I did that was that there's always a sweet spot in a market where there's less demand and maybe a little bit more supply. And what I found is that is the kind of $5 to $15 million range, maybe $5 to $20 million range, where a lot of people can't afford to buy that themselves, and they're too small for many of the REITs. No, that's
Right.
not true with everyone. There are companies in Alberta and Saskatchewan buying up everything they can find, Avenue Living and Main Street, everything like that, buying up smaller units. But legitimately, there are less people that can afford those kind of buildings.
Mhm.
So that's why I decided to kind of skip the steps. So I learned everything I could. I went to the school of kind of hard knocks, learned everything I needed to with single family homes, and then directly went from there to the size of units that would be best where I could find some deals. Now, you asked me about how do I find deals? Everyone has their own strategy. And I'm not going to say my strategy is the best. It's the best for me, but everyone has their own strategy. And I think anytime anyone hears this is the best way to do it, I always turn off my ears because I'm going, come on, there's no best way to do anything. But for me, I'm a people person. I love engaging with people. I love connecting with people. I love helping people. And I have found that the best relationships often end up helping me with the best business for myself. So I connect with people. I connect with real estate agents. I connect with people in general, and I'm always asking questions. The way I found this property in Regina was through a real estate agent that I'd worked on another deal with. He was representing the vendor, not myself, and he just struck me as a really unique person who was open-minded. So I connected with him. Again, lots of coffees. Never trust somebody who always forces you to buy coffee. Make sure that they're doing their share. Well, I bought a lot of coffee for a lot of other people over time, and over time, this guy said, "Hey, Mark, there's a deal in Calgary that you might be interested in." I looked at it. I was interested in it. It fell apart, but from that, I got to meet an owner. And as soon as I got to meet the owner, again, people are teaching to take advantage of owners and to just like negotiate hard and do everything we can. I don't do that. That's not my method. My method is that I get to know people and I become friends with them. And so over time, if I've got a friendship with somebody, then if there's another deal, they might tell me about it. And sure enough, he told me about another deal he was doing, which was in Regina, which led to this deal. So that's a convoluted way of saying that there are kind of two parts to getting where I am. I think one part was learning every kind of deal there is and really spending time on that. And then the other part was that I work really hard on relationships and connect with people and create a friendship rather than like this animosity, you against me for every dollar involved in the deal. I'm going to be honest again. I will leave a little bit of money on the table if it gets the deal done. I want the deal to get done as long as, again, my investors are taken care of. As long as I can take care of my investors, it's okay to leave a little bit of money on the deal, make somebody really happy with you, and then you get a second deal from them down the road. That's kind of my method of negotiation. It's not kind of hitting somebody over the head with a large stone and hoping that you can run off with all their money. That's not the way I work.
That's a win-win situation. Can't remember the book name. That FBI ex-FBI guy. He wrote a book about how to negotiate.
Oh yeah,
He
there are a few of them.
Right.
I've read a couple of them. Yeah.
Right. So he mentioned that, create a situation where it's, if the other person is not winning, the other person doesn't feel that, they're also winning. They will never do the transaction.
Yeah.
And that's a huge, even like for people in real estate, you can do, if somebody wants to do like you mentioned, like if you want to do bigger projects, really good projects like lower purchase price, value add opportunities, you need people. And like you have the skill set, you have the experience, you have the skill sets, and being a psychology professor, it's a that's a huge talent, that how to make sure that, because like relationships are most important. Doesn't matter if it's tradespeople or your tenants or your realtor, mortgage broker, or even like the owner, right? So really impressed and with your projects, and yeah.
It's funny, Kiran, because I really don't think that there's one way to do anything. I know people who are cutthroat in real estate. I would never do a deal with them, but they do really well, and they make a lot of money from what they're doing. I think we need to find our own style. For me, it's win-wins. Truly, that is my style. I want friends. Everyone, we all know somebody who has gone through a divorce,
Yes.
and in a divorce, all of a sudden you've got people who were friendly, at least on some level before, and it just gets nasty and people are doing whatever they can to hurt each other. I learned early on that actually there was a really unique study. Maybe I'll tell you this. There was a really unique study basically to show that humans love justice. We want to feel that things are fair. So this was the study. They would have two people, and they would give the first person $10, and they would say, you can give as many of these dollars to this other person. If you both agree that it's okay, then you both get the amount of money that you've offered. You can't offer it twice. You only get to offer it once. So you had some people who would offer, hey, I got $5, I can give you $5, and then both people are usually happy. And 100% of the time, those deals went through. But if the first person who got the money started giving less money to the second person, even if they're getting some money, so for example, if I take $8 and only give you $2, then now most of the time, the second person will say, I'm going to say no to the deal so that both of us get nothing. rather than having $2 myself. And that's how humans think in my mind. So for me, I go, how do we make sure that at the end of the day, everyone feels they've been treated fairly? If everyone feels that, you can still get great deals in real estate. You can still do really unique, creative strategies and contracts. But to me, we've got to take care of other people too. And I think that's what's often missing when I hear people negotiate.
Nice, nice. Really, really great tips. Thank you so much for Mark, coming on the podcast and sharing huge tips and strategies for multifamily investors. So, if people want to reach out, and want to find out more about your project in Regina, how they can reach out.
Great question. Do you have show notes for this podcast, Kiran?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, tell you what, I'm going to give you a link that people can use to book in a one-on-one meeting with me. If people are curious, I'm always happy to have a meeting. I only ask that people don't waste my time. So if somebody's curious, great, but do something with it. If somebody's curious and they're not going to do anything with the information, then don't worry about it. You can read books. Books are a lot cheaper. But yeah, legitimately, I'd love to hang out with people. I love helping people. You know this.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I'll be happy to have a call with anyone that wants it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you. So please subscribe to Multifamily Deals and Dollars podcast, and we'll have Mark Frenz again as a special guest with finding more tips and strategies. And thank you for having Mark.
Thank you, Kiran. It's always fun.